channel. My name's Angela and this is Devon Thread Tales. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to be doing my very first ever pattern review. I've never done this before and I'm so delighted that I'm doing it in collaboration with Karen from So Little Time. Karen is somebody that I met for the very first time at Sew Brum a couple of years ago, and we had been messaging a little bit on Instagram prior to that, and then since then we've had a bit of a yap here and there, and then when coronavirus hit we decided to do some Zoom calls and do a bit of sewing together while we were on a Zoom chat together, and it's just been really good fun and really lovely. And whilst we were doing that, at some point one or other of us decided that it would be a really good idea to do a sew along together, not necessarily to share on YouTube like I am now, but we decided to sew the same pattern together, and that would be really good fun. But when we kind of got to the end of it, we thought, do you know what, we're going to share that with everybody else too. So if you haven't come across Karen before, she is an absolutely lovely lady. She's an absolute delight to watch on YouTube. She's so happy and bubbly. She has 3 young children and she quite often sews for herself and her children, and she just sews absolutely immaculately and beautifully. So do go check her out. I'm going to put a link into her Instagram and her YouTube down below, and I'm also going to put a link into the video that she's sharing of her pattern review of this same pattern. So the pattern that we're both reviewing is the New Look 6446, which is a dress and a jumpsuit. It comes as 4 different options. There is a short dress and a long dress, a short romper jumpsuit and a long jumpsuit. But the long jumpsuit is actually only 3/4 length. So it's a really lovely pattern, and it's something that was really popular on Instagram a little while ago. So many people made it and made absolutely beautiful versions of it, and I had decided I'd really like to give it a go. I did that about 18 months ago, and my version of it was really not great. I made it out of a quilting cotton, which I think was my first rookie mistake, because the fabric was just a bit too stiff and starchy and too structured, and it just made everything sort of look a bit strange. And I also made the wrong size, so I made it a little bit too big, and I had to take it in so many different ways that it just ended up being a little bit of a mess, if I'm honest with you. And it's such a shame, because I actually quite liked the fabric that I had chosen, but it was neither the right fabric nor the right size. So yeah, I kind of put that pattern away as a bit of a fail and a flop, and thought I'm not going to go back to it again. But Karen's kind of persuaded me to give it another go, and I am so delighted that I have. So I'm just going to tell you about the sizes that are on the New Look pattern. So it comes in a size 6 up to a size 18 in the pattern packet that I have, and that's from a bust 30.5, waist 23, hip 32.5, and that goes up to the size 18, which is a bust 40, waist 32, hip 42. And the fabrics that they suggest that you use is calico, chambray, chino, cotton types, gingham, lightweight denim, linen types, and it also says to allow extra fabric for matching plaids and stripes. So the maximum amount of fabric that you would need if you were using a wide fabric, so a 60-inch fabric, is 2 1/8 of a yard of fabric. Now I made a few changes to my jumpsuit. I actually made the legs a lot longer because I wasn't really keen on this crop length. This is the version that I made last year, and I'll pop a picture in of the jumpsuit that I made. It does look okay, but it's just not that wearable, and it's actually not that comfortable to wear, so I don't really wear it, and I think actually it's time to let that one go, unfortunately. But yes, that's the version that I made, with the cropped version like this. And I decided for my version that I was going to make the legs a lot longer. So I wanted them to come down to reach the ground or reach my feet. So I added 11 inches to the length of the legs. And the fabric that I used, I decided that I wanted to use my Sew Hayley Jane fabric that I'd got in one of my boxes, which is this absolutely gorgeous navy blue with a lilac leaf and a minty green flower on it. And it's a viscose fabric. It's really lovely and soft and drapey. It's just really gorgeous. And I had 2.5 meters of that, so by adding 11 inches to my leg length, I was unsure about how that was going to fit, but I have to say it fitted absolutely perfectly. So if you wanted to do the same as I have and add that amount of length to it, then you would need 2.5 meters of fabric. I had a little bit left over, not enough to make a garment, but probably enough to make maybe a headband or a couple of scrunchies or something like that. So there is a little bit left, a few scraps here and there. It also comes with the option of a tie belt, which I made on my version last year, but this time I've decided I just don't want one. I don't think it's necessary, and actually I'm really glad that I did that. Now Karen has made hers in this version. She's made the crop length, and she's made hers in a stretch fabric, and it is absolutely stunning and absolutely beautiful. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hand you over to Karen now, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her jumpsuit.
Hi Angela, hi everyone, I hope you're doing really well. So if you don't know me, my name is Karen and I'm from Sew Little Time, and myself and Angela have been sewing the New Look 6446 jumpsuit together over the last few weeks during our weekly sewing sessions that we've been doing on Zoom. I just want to say, Angela, thank you so much for doing that with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I just love our sewing and chatting sessions that we have, and I'm so glad that we have finally made this jumpsuit together. It's just a fantastic pattern, so if you are watching and you've not made it before, I urge you to make this jumpsuit. It's just a really nice sew, and it is a really flattering fit as well. So for my version, I have made it out of a stretch cotton sateen fabric in this lovely blue colour with all these lemons over it, so it's quite a bright and bold funky print. But I absolutely love it, and I got this fabric from Minerva, and I do believe they still have it as well, so you could still get your hands on it if you like it. With it being a stretch cotton sateen, it does have that little extra bit of stretch in it, so it just makes it extra comfortable to wear, which is really great, and I just absolutely love how it has turned out. So my version, I have just gone with sort of the straight out of the packet look, so it's got the 3/4 length legs, so I'll stand back so you can see that in more detail. So as you can see, it's got lovely deep pockets here, and then the culotte sort of style legs come down to mid-calf, and usually I just wear that with sandals or something, or you could even funk it up with a pair of trainers. Yeah, lovely deep pockets, you know, really generous, and you can get your hands right in there. It's got a couple of pleats on the front here, which are just a nice design feature, and then this lovely waist section here. At the back there are some darts here which make it a nice fit across your back, so it brings it in really nicely. And then at the top it's got this lovely band section here and these lovely thick straps, which I think are great because they just cover your bra straps. Now I made the size 12, which I have made in the past. I've made this jumpsuit before and I absolutely loved it then, and so I just made the same size for this version. It does have that little extra bit of stretch, so it is a lot more comfortable, especially as I've gained a few pounds during lockdown, so that's really helped me for this version, but you know, I will lose that. Anyway, but yeah, it's a really nice fit, I have to say, and I do think, in my opinion, it does really suit a pear-shaped figure or an hourglass figure, just because there is quite a lot of ease in the hip area. So if you're like me, you have a smaller waist compared to your hip area, then it will really help you sort of in the fit of this jumpsuit. So I haven't made any changes to the fit apart from at the back, where I've just brought the zip in a little bit more. So just to make it a closer fit across here, I just used a larger seam allowance for that section just to make it a closer fit. It was a little bit gapey because I am your classic pear shape basically. So on the hip area, it's got 6 inches of ease compared to your body measurements. So the finished garment measurements has sort of 6 inches extra. So it just means that you have more sort of room to play around with that fit if necessary. For me, I don't need to do that because I am a pear shape, so it is played in my favour having that extra 6 inches of ease. It's a really nice pattern to sew, and I have thoroughly enjoyed sewing it up with Angela. It was just nice to take our time with it and just sort of check the fit as we went along. So yeah, I'm just over the moon with how this has turned out, and I think Angela's version is absolutely beautiful. So I thought it was nice to be able to show a comparison basically to what it was going to be like in different fabrics, because Angela's, as you've seen, is a beautiful viscose floaty fabric, and this is a more structured sort of cotton. so it does hold the shape of the legs a lot more. So you can just basically see that you can use various different fabrics for it, and it works both ways. Yeah, and so pleased with it. So that's my review of it, and I really hope you like what you see. So again, thank you very much, Angela, and I shall see you very soon. Bye.
Oh, I just absolutely love Karen's jumpsuit. It looks so lovely, and I think it's really great to see how a different body type, a different fabric, and the slightly different style looks so different to how I've made mine. I think it's really, really great, and just shows how different a pattern can look in all those different areas. So going back to my jumpsuit, like I said, I added 11 inches to the length of mine, and that was the first alteration that I made to my pattern before I even cut any of the fabric out. I just literally, the legs are very, very straight, so I just literally drew straight lines, 11 inches coming down on both the front and back leg, and squared that off, and that's what I cut out. I probably did cut off about an inch or so from that when I actually finally finished my version, but you know, that's fine. I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to undercook it, so I just slightly overcooked it and made sure I had enough to be able to do a good hem on it. So I'm going to show you a couple of the pattern pieces as I'm speaking to show you some of the other alterations that I made. The first thing that I did, and this is actually something else that I did prior to cutting out my fabric, I actually decided to slightly elongate the crotch in the trousers. I hadn't had any problems with my previous jumpsuit that I'd made, but a couple of people had said that they had a few issues with it sort of being a little bit tight around the bottom area. So I decided that it would be a good idea to just slightly lengthen mine, because I was going for a different size. Last year when I made mine in a size 14 and then had to take in lots and lots and lots, I'm guessing I had that little bit of extra room in the crotch because I'd made that size 14. This time I'd made the size 12, and I just was a bit nervous that the crotch area was going to be too high and might make things a bit uncomfortable. So I actually ever so slightly elongated that, and I just went down to one of the sizes, or possibly two sizes below that, just to increase it by about ½ an inch or so. I went for the size 12, which is really not my measurements. My measurements are bust 36, waist 30, hips 37, 37 and a half, something like that, which really, really strongly puts me in the size 14. I went for the size 12, which is a bust 34, and that's actually the high bust measurement. Now the waist for the size 12 is 26 and a half inches. My waist is 30 on a good day. So I was a little bit concerned about whether that would be okay or not, but I checked the pattern pieces out and I really, really measured, and I thought it was going to possibly be okay, and I'd have a little bit of leeway with the amount of seam allowance that I had, and I could possibly let things out ever so slightly if I needed to. So I'll just show you the waist now. I didn't actually end up changing the seam allowance on the waist at all, and I'm really pleased with how it's come out. It's not too tight. I still have a little bit of room there for manoeuvre, for eating, and also the trousers, not that you can be able to see this very easily on here, the trousers actually have a pleat in them here. So where the waist of the bodice meets the waistline of the trousers, there's actually sort of this little bit of room for cake, I was going to say, but a little bit of room for manoeuvre around that area, so I don't feel like it's too much of an ordeal, so it's absolutely fine. So going back onto the adjustments that I made on the pattern, there is a band that goes right across the top of the front bodice piece, and when I first made mine, it meant that the straps that come down were actually a little bit too wide across my body, and the straps came out far too wide and just didn't sit correctly on me. So I took in each of the pattern pieces by 1.5 centimeters. So that's the seam allowance again from the original pattern, and I graded that down to the original start line at the bottom. Hopefully you can see this on the screen where I'm showing you the original pattern piece and then my pattern piece. The only thing that I did then was I actually increased the amount of seam allowance on the back section where the zip is. It was just a bit too big and baggy around my back, but I didn't want to reduce it where my waist was going to be because I knew that would then be far too small. But it needed to come in about 3 centimetres, so I reduced the amount of, or I increased the amount of seam allowance at the top section of the bodice, and I basically did a diagonal line from where I wanted to be reduced down to the original line of the bodice where the waist attaches. And by doing this, it meant that I didn't have to make any adjustments for attaching the trousers and the bodice together. It was all just really nicely sort of sewn in and exactly the right size, but I had been able to reduce that amount of bagginess at the top of the bodice. I also then decided I wanted to attach a label, so prior to hand sewing in the facings to the bodice, I attached this really cute label that says "to me, from me," or "love me." And I got these labels in another Sew Hayley Jane box, and it just felt really nice putting that in because I was so delighted with how the jumpsuit was coming out so far. It really did feel like I was sewing myself a bit of a treat, and I'm just so chuffed with how it's come out. So that's it, that is my jumpsuit, and I am so delighted with it. I can really see myself making more of these. I'm just so pleased with it. I really would be more than happy to answer any questions about it and about the adjustments that I made, so please do feel free to ask me anything in the comments below. It's a fabulous pattern. The putting together of it and the instructions, etc., they're really straightforward. It really isn't complicated. I think probably the most complicated part of this is putting in the zip, but there are so many tutorials online now and on YouTube and blog posts and things like that that you can actually get handheld sort of help putting in things like a zip, but the rest of it, the construction of it, putting in the pleats and the darts and things like that, they were very simple, and it's just been an absolute delight to sew, and especially doing it alongside Karen because yeah, it's just been a real giggle. I think we'd quite like to do another little sew along together in the future, and we might be sharing some more patterns in the future too. We'll have to wait and see. I'm just gonna leave you now with a few little bits of video and some pictures of both mine and Karen's jumpsuits, but other than that, I will see you all again soon. You take care. Bye.